Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about how to correct a problem when stock items are received and then the bill is not applied to the purchase order. So let's take a look at our agenda. So here's the scenario. We create a purchase order. We receive the goods against the purchase order, but rather than entering the bill against the purchase order in accounts payable, we just enter the bill and we release the bill to pay the vendor. Now this causes a couple of problems. One is the purchase order doesn't close. It's still waiting for that bill to be received against the purchase order. The other problem we have is the general ledger posting. What's happened is the receipt of goods debited the inventory account and credited the accrual account, and then your bill most likely debited the inventory account again. So now you have a double posting to the inventory account and no posting to the accrual account. So we have a couple of different ways to solve this problem that I'm going to walk you through. One is if we've entered that bill in accounts payable, we can reverse that bill. And then once we reverse it, we can enter a bill in accounts payable and link it to the purchase order like we should have done in the first place. Now that we have that adjustment after reversing the original bill, we can just apply that adjustment to that original bill that we created in accounts payable that was not linked to the purchase order. However, I just went through this with another client and they paid that original bill, which is fine. You can still use this process, but when you do that adjustment, instead of adjusting it to the original bill, you can just adjust it to the bill that's created against the purchase order. So that's one way to solve this problem. And this is a methodology that I like because reversing that original bill will reverse the posting to the general ledger account number that was on that original bill. But another way to do this is to leave that original bill alone, again, even pay it if you choose to do so, but then do the receipt against the purchase order, but change the unit cost to 0. In this scenario, you'll get a posting to the inventory adjustment account and the accrual account, and you will need to make an adjustment from there through general ledger journal entry. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So first thing I'm going to do is create the scenario. So once again, we're going to create a purchase order and receive the goods, and then we'll enter a bill, but not applying the bill to the purchase order. So here we are in Acumatica. Let's start by creating a purchase order. So I'll create a new purchase order, and we'll pick our vendor, and we'll enter our lines. In this example, I'm just going to choose an inventory item, the Acer laptop computer. Let's go ahead and order 10 of those. And just so I can remember the numbers more easily, let's go ahead and change the unit cost to 200, making our purchase order for $2,000. Let's take it off hold. Let's approve it. And there we are. Our purchase order is now open. So now let's receive the goods against this. So I'm going to go into enter PO receipt. And we won't be creating a bill here. We'll just receive the goods. Everything's copacetic, so we'll just go ahead and release it. So I'll go to the inventory transaction, and we'll look at the financial details and drill into that, the general ledger. And as you can see here, we have a debit to the inventory asset account and a credit to the inventory purchases accrual account. So now the other part of our scenario is the bill shows up from the vendor, and so we'll create a new bill. So we'll pick our vendor. We'll enter in the vendor's reference number. And in this scenario, I'm just going to go ahead and put in the $2,000 bill that we received from the vendor. And I'm going to change the GL account number to our inventory account. So that's going to debit that account. Go ahead and take it off hold. release it. And again, we could pay this bill if we wish to do so. But here's our problem. If I go back to the purchase order and I look, the status of this purchase order is completed, not closed, because it's still waiting for the bill to come in on the line of that purchase order. So our first solution here is to reverse that original bill and enter the bill in accounts payable for the purchase order like we should have done in the first place, and then apply that adjustment to the original bill. Now you could do the reversal and the enter the bill in whatever order you choose. So back in Acumatica, I'm going to go ahead and do the receipt of the invoice for this purchase order. So again, if we look at this, we look at our PO history, we have the items received, but we don't have the bill. So let's go to accounts payable and we'll create a new bill. We'll select our vendor or enter our vendor ref. Now we're going to get a notice that this is a duplicate reference number because we've already processed the bill with the same number over in the original bill, but that's okay. We'll go to the lines and we're going to add a PO receipt line. And there's our line for our 10 Acer computers. We'll go ahead and add that and close, take it off hold, and release that. So let's go look at our vendor details. We should see two bills here. And there they are. So reference number 2017 is our original bill, and then 2018 is the bill we just created. Let's look at our purchase order as well. So now when we look at that purchase order, we can see that purchase order is now closed. But what I want to do is create an adjustment to that original bill. So I'm going to go back to bills and adjustments, call up reference 2017, and we're going to reverse this. And when we reverse it, it's just going to create a debit adjustment going to the same general ledger account number as the original bill. So we'll take that off of hold and we'll release that. So now let's go look at our vendor details. So you can see we have our two bills and our adjustment. Now what I'm going to do is tie this adjustment to that original bill. So I'm going to open up the adjustment. Under actions, I'm going to pay bill or apply the adjustment. It's going to assume we're going to apply it to a bill, and the bill I'm going to apply it to is the 2017 one, and apply $2,000 to that and just release that. And let's go ahead and close this window. Now, since we're already on the vendor details, I'll just refresh and you can see that bill's gone away, and now we're just left with a single bill. Once again, the thing I like most about this particular process is the general ledger posting ends up being correct, even if the amounts end up being different. Now, they shouldn't be different, but if they are different, we're fine. Because if we go back and look at the purchase order, call that up, and look at the PO history, we know that that original receipt debited the inventory account and credited the accrual account. Well, this bill also credited the accounts payable and debited the accrual account. So we can take a look at the financial details of this, and you can see there's my credit to accounts payable and my debit to my accrual account. So everything works out perfectly fine. Okay, we're going to talk about solution 2 now, which is we entered a bill in accounts payable for the purchase order, but we changed the unit cost to 0. And after changing the unit cost to 0, we're going to get a posting into the accrual account, which we want, and the adjustment account. But we're still going to have two postings to the inventory account because of the other bill, and we don't want the posting to the adjustment account. So we're going to do a journal entry to credit the inventory account and debit the adjustment account after we're done. So let's take a look at this in Acumatica. So here we are again. Our purchase order has had the goods received. So once again, it's in completed status, not closed. And as you can see here, if we look at our PO history, it's been received, but there hasn't been an invoice brought against it. And if we look at accounts payable and we look at the vendor details for that vendor, you can see that we have the open bill out here to pay. So in this scenario, we're just going to pay this bill. And assuming that the account on this bill is the inventory account, again, we have the double posting inventory. Well, let's go ahead, go back into the purchase order again. So in this scenario, we're going to go ahead and receive against this purchase order. And to do that, I'm going to go back into create a new bill and accounts payable. And we'll pick our vendor. And we'll put it on our vendor reference. Again, we'll get a notice that this reference already exists, which is perfectly fine. And just like we did in solution 1, we're going to add a PO receipt line. We'll add close. However, this time we're going to change the unit cost to 0 because we already have a bill to pay in accounts payable. We're not going to create another one, which means we're not going to have to do that debit adjustment. So we're going to go ahead and release this bill with a value of 0. So that's been released. Once it's been released, we'll look at the GL postings. So let's go back to the purchase order. So now you can see the purchase order is closed, which is our goal. Look at the PO history. We'll drill back into the bill. We'll look at the financial detail. So in this scenario, we had the debit to inventory. Now we have the credit to the purchase price variance account and a debit to inventory in this scenario. So because we debited inventory for the receipt of goods and we debited inventory again when we entered the bill and accounts payable, we're just now left with the journal entry to credit the inventory account and debit the adjustment account. That's a different way to handle this. So again, our two solutions are to reverse that original bill and then enter the bill and accounts payable linking to the purchase order and then apply the debit adjustment to the original bill. Our second solution is to enter the bill and accounts payable tying to purchase order, but change the unit cost to 0 and go ahead and let that post to the purchase price variance account and then do a journal entry for the inventory account that was double posted and a debit to the adjustment account, erasing that adjustment. You can pick whatever scenario you like. I like option 1 because it automatically pulls the correct GL account number. You don't have to go look at the GL account numbers. And secondarily, if the costs are different, it fixes that as well. But if the bill has already been paid, then you may want to look at solution 2. Thank you again for joining us today. Please subscribe to our channel. You can also find our user group on LinkedIn. And you can contact us at NIMS & Associates at erp@nimsassociates.com or call us at 877-454-3200, extension 6346.